You have big dreams of losing weight and creating a healthy, joyful life. But you find yourself craving sugar, caught up in what the scale says, and diet hopping. Dieting is the old way of losing weight. And the good news is I'm going to give you a new way of eating so you can ditch diets for good and build a healthy relationship with real food. My name is Megan Olson, certified nutrition practitioner, creator of Skinny Fitalicious, and your host of the Dish on Diets show. Hello, friends. Today we're talking about why health is not a scale weight. We're going to talk about that stinky scale because it messes a lot of you up, and a lot of you are doing really wacky, screwed up things with food because you want the number on the scale to go down. And some of the things I see people doing are disordered eating things just to see the scale go down when they don't even understand the scale. And I spoke about the scale a while back in episode 78. It's a really good episode. I think you should go back and listen to it after you listen to this one. But I think we do need to spend some time talking more about the scale because I see so many women over 35 sabotaging themselves over this scale number. And listen to me right off the bat. The scale is not going to do the same stuff that it did when you were in your 20s or early 30s. It just is not going to work that way anymore. And I see some clients who are kind of in this mindset too, where they're just so tied to the scale. The majority of women who are trying to lose body fat simply do not understand that there is a difference between losing body fat and losing scale weight. So we're going to talk about that today. And before we dive in, a few things. One is I announced in the last podcast episode the winner for the July cookbook giveaway. So make sure you're listening to the episodes to hear if you're the winner. And if you're the winner, make sure you email me, megan@skinnyfitalicious.com, so I can send the cookbook to you. Also, if you want to be entered in for August, all you have to do is open the Apple app on your phone, go to the Dish on Ditching Diets podcast, click on my face, scroll all the way to the bottom, leave a 5-star rating and review, and you will be entered in for the month of August to win a copy of my cookbook that I will personally send to you. All right. So let's talk about the scale. First of all, I want to say I see so many women doing really screwed up, messed up things with food, all just to get the scale to go down because they're miserable in their bodies. They feel fat. They feel gross. They feel disgusting. They don't like how they feel. They want to change. I get it. I was there at one point too. But I want you to think about this. There are some people who are doing such drastic, crazy things with food. They're not willing to do the boring basics that I talk about all the time. Basics like eating enough protein, which is a very critical nutrient, especially as women age. Eating enough fiber, another critical nutrient. Eating enough fruits and vegetables, getting 8,000 to 10,000 steps a day, doing a little strength training, getting a little cardio exercise. People are not willing to do that boring basic stuff, but they're willing to do stuff like eat sticks of butter so they can lose weight. Or they're willing to do stuff like only eat sardines for 10 days because they want to lose weight. Or they're only eating one meal a day because they want to lose weight. Or they're only eating a package of pork bacon one meal a day, and that's the only thing they eat because they want to lose weight. At some point, you got to stop and ask yourself, is this normal? Because I see a lot of women doing this stuff thinking it's healthy, thinking it's normal, and it's not. It's disordered. It's disordered eating masked as healthy. And unfortunately, there are a lot of influencers on social media who share these things. And these influencers that I see have millions of followers, thousands of likes. And when I read the comments, I'm very scared. I'm scared of what women are doing. And I'm scared of what women are doing to their kids. Because I also see some of these influencers who, by the way, have no nutritional background, no nutritional education. They're just sharing what they're doing, and it's really screwed up. But they're doing this stuff to their kids, too. They're like, I'm not letting my kids eat any fruit or vegetable. I'm shaming my kid for eating a donut. I watched a video the other day on TikTok of a woman yelling at her 5-year-old because he ate 5 donuts at a picnic that they were at. And it was clear from all of her videos that she was forcing him not to eat any sugar. Do you know what's going to happen to a child who has been told repeatedly, you can't eat this, you can't eat this, you can't eat that, this has too much sugar, this has too many seed oils? That child's going to grow up to be an adult someday. They're going to have their own money and they're going to go buy food and they're going to binge on the exact foods you told them over and over again as a parent that were bad for them. If you want your kid to grow up with disordered eating patterns, this is the way to do it. And unfortunately, I see a lot of clients in my nutrition practice exactly in this scenario. We know from a lot of studies, and I've talked about them before in this podcast, we know from studies when people are restricted of foods, binging and overeating and over-obsession around certain foods starts to happen at some point. So you might be able to get away with it for a while, but at some point, you're not going to be able to get away from it anymore because psychologically, your brain is going to take over and you're going to binge and you're going to feel out of control. This is not healthy. But my main point here is we need to stop and ask ourselves, what are we doing? Like, if we're not willing to do the basic stuff to take care of our health, but we're willing to do such crazy screwed up things like eat sticks of butter. I mean, I saw this woman the other day. She's like, I'm cutting up cubes of butter and putting it in my freezer so it tastes better. And then I drink a hot cup of coffee after I have one of these cubes of butter so I can get it down. And I'm like, what are we doing? Do you not see how messed up this is? I mean, some of the people who are doing some of these really weird things with food, they don't see how weird it is because it's almost like a cult. And until you get on the other side of that cult, you just don't see how messed up it was. And it's honestly no different than a restrictive diet, right? You go on an 800 calorie diet where you're severely restricting calories, or you're doing like a 2 shake a day program as a meal replacement and then doing one meal, or you're only eating one meal a day and maybe it's got 500 calories, or you're doing Optavia, or one of these other programs that really is just teaching you some weird things to do with food so you can lose weight and see the scale go down temporarily. All these things are restrictive eating. And like I always say, ladies, if you can't do something until you're 85 years old, you got no business doing it. It's a waste of your time. And the thing that's going to be most compromised is your mental health, because your relationship with food is going to suck. You're going to become obsessed with these foods at some point. And again, if you can't do it until you're 85 years old, it's never going to last. The weight's going to come back. And some people will say, I feel so much better when I eat this way or when I do this thing with food. Of course you feel better. You've cut out a bunch of junk. You're eating more protein. Of course you feel better. This is like not breaking news. You're feeling better because you're getting some more nutrients that you were deficient in before. I see this all the time with clients. When we start to work on protein, which typically is the first thing I work on with clients, they always say to me, I can't believe how much better I feel, right? Because you're getting nutrients. You haven't been getting them. Health is a pay me now or pay me later situation. And you can get by without getting nutrients, without getting any physical activity and exercise. You can get by for a long period of time until your body is going to start to show signs of that. And typically for women, it starts to show up around perimenopause and menopause. So those who haven't been taking the time to do the best that they can, because I realize everybody's got different time limitations, right? Some people have lots of kids or little kids, jobs on top of it, right? And so if you haven't been doing what you can do to be the healthiest you can, it's going to start to show up at some point. And I see clients who are on like 20 to 50 different medications. They've got 3 or 4, 6 different medical diseases. And they're trying to now in their 60s or 70s reverse that. Some of these people have just recently retired from a job that they put all of their blood, sweat, and tears into and sacrificed their health mentally and physically for. And now they're 60 or 70. They should be living the best years of their lives, retired and healthy and vibrant, and they're not. What are we doing? At some point, you have to stop and ask yourself, what are you doing? Like I said, health is a pay me now or pay me later. And I get it. Everybody has different stresses, different responsibilities. So not everybody can do the same things. And this is why I tell my clients who have children who are younger, I say, you know what? You just have to realize you're going to do the best you can. And this is probably going to take a little bit longer for you to figure out how to get some of these things in. You're not going to be able to be perfect, and you're going to have to let go of that. But doing something is always better than nothing, because what you do now, it's going to pay you back later on. Even if it's just a walk around the block that you do every day, it's going to pay you back later on. So let's talk about the scale. And let's talk about the difference between losing body fat and losing scale weight. Fat loss is losing body fat. When you are losing body fat, you are improving your body composition. You are getting leaner, putting on more lean muscle tissue, looking more toned, and your pant size, your clothes size is going down. As a result of losing body fat, you are simultaneously improving your metabolic health. Your metabolic rate is improving because you have more lean muscle and less body fat. Your insulin sensitivity also increases. Potentially, your thyroid function improves. When you have less body fat, you are at a lower risk of developing major diseases like fatty liver disease, cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, and cancer. So metabolically speaking, you are healthier when you have less body fat. Now, there is a point where you have too little body fat. That's a problem too, right? So it's about having the right amount of body fat. And I think that this is what most women want, right? They want their clothes size to go down. They want their clothes to feel better. They want to look leaner, more toned, more muscular, improve their metabolic health, and just be healthier overall, fitter overall. And here's the thing that's going to really blow your mind about fat loss. Are you listening? You can lose a substantial amount of body fat and your scale weight can stay exactly the same. Let me say it again for those who weren't listening. You can lose a substantial amount of body fat and your scale weight can stay exactly the same. Why? Because 1 pound of muscle equals 1 pound of fat. A pound is a pound, just like a pound of bricks is the same weight as a pound of cotton balls. 1 pound is 1 pound. The difference is the composition of the pound. A pound of bricks takes up a lot more space than a pound of cotton balls, right? Right? The composition is different. So a pound of muscle takes up a lot less space in your body than 1 pound of fat tissue. The composition is exactly the same, so you could lose inches and your clothes size could go down, but your scale weight could stay exactly the same, or it might even go up a little bit or go down a little bit. Really depends on where your body composition is when you're starting fat loss. So think about it this way. You lose 10 pounds of body fat and you gain 10 pounds of muscle. -10 plus 10 equals what? I know, good old math. It equals 0. 0 scale change. That's why the scale doesn't change. So if you want your clothes size to go down, then using the scale is a terrible measurement tool because the scale doesn't measure body fat percentage. And the body composition scales, a lot of you tell me you buy for at home, are not very accurate. We have studies that back this up. Body compositions at home are not accurate because the way you measure body fat percentage technically is with a bod pod where you go underwater, which isn't all that convenient for people. But the other way you can do it is with a DEXA scan, which will measure your body composition. You get a script from your doctor and your doctor will measure your bone density and your body composition at the same time. And a lot of older women do this like once a year, especially if you've got like osteoporosis, osteopenia, something like that going on. Your doctor will want to monitor that because you're losing bone mass. So DEXA scan is one way to do it. Not that convenient because you got to get a script from your doctor, and typically you can only do that once a year. An in-body scan, that's available at most gyms. That's way better way of figuring out what your body composition is than these scales that we take in home. Like I said, the true way of doing it is with a bod pod, but it's not convenient or practical for individuals to go to one of those. And so DEXA and in-body scans are the two things that are most practical for most individuals who are trying to lose some body fat. If neither one of those are available to you, then all you can do is take monthly measurements. And your measurements are going to tell you if you're losing body fat. Now, losing scale weight is just seeing a number on the scale go down. A lot of women struggle to understand this conceptually. So if you're losing scale weight and your only focus is on the scale number, chances are that a high percentage of what you're losing is muscle mass. So like 40 to 50% of what you're losing is probably muscle mass on that scale weight. People who lose weight quickly and drop calories too drastically, cut out foods too drastically, are at a high risk for this, especially if they're not consuming adequate protein and strength training. And let me give a caveat to this. For people who do keto or like carnivore, these high fat, high protein diets where they're cutting out carbs, you have to realize that the body still needs glucose in order to survive. So if you're not consuming any type of carbohydrate and you're really limiting the sugars and the glucose that you're eating, your body will break down protein, which is called gluconeogenesis. Your body is going to break down protein to convert it to glucose. It will not be converted to and used for muscle. A lot of people don't know that, but your body's going to find a way to get glucose if you don't feed it. So anyways, that's the only caveat I have to that. So we know from studies, again, that approximately 40 to 50% of what an individual loses when they lose scale weight is muscle. So that means like if you lost 20 pounds doing some diet and you lost 20 pounds on the scale, that means 8 to 10 pounds of that 20 pound loss was muscle. Now, let's say you regain those 20 pounds back. You don't gain 8 to 10 pounds of muscle back. No. You gain all 20 pounds of fat back. Generally speaking, that's what happens, which means now you've gained 20 pounds of fat back. You have a slower metabolic rate and you are unhealthier metabolically speaking than you were before losing 20 pounds because your body fat percentage is now higher. You've got less muscle, you've got higher body fat percentage. Make sense so far? I had a client who did Optavia, and she was recently telling me how when she lost weight really quickly doing Optavia, she was like, I still looked flabby and fat, and she always felt confused by that. And I was like, right, we call this skinny fat. So she lost a lot of scale weight, but she still had a high percentage of body fat. That is what we call skinny fat. I see a lot of women in my nutrition practice whose body compositions are what we call skinny fat. They are slender-ish, but they still look really flabby, right? Because your body composition has much less muscle and a higher amount of body fat. And the more you diet, the more body fat percentage you end up gaining because you don't gain muscle back. You keep losing muscle. And the crazy thing is that women, or really all humans, as they age, we lose muscle mass. So if you're not getting adequate protein, which most individuals are not doing these days, and you're not strength training, which most individuals are not doing these days, it's like a double whammy because now you're dieting and losing muscle mass and making your body composition worse and making your body fat percentage go up. And now, in addition, you've got this natural aging process that's happening, and a lot of people are sitting more, and they're not doing strength training and they're not eating adequate protein. So it's like you've got this double whammy where your body composition is just getting worse and worse and worse. Body fat percentage is going up, muscle mass is going down. So as you can see, fat loss and scale loss are two totally different things. The question is, which one do you want to go after? Because a lot of women are just chasing these scale weights. They've got a number in their head of like what they were when they were 30, and they're like, I should be that number. That should be the number I am. I got news for you. It might not be the number you should be at. It's probably that your body composition needs to change. So if you are a female and your body fat percentage is above 30%, that's something you need to work on. We need to work on reducing body fat below 30%, ideally under 25%. So and somewhere between 19 to 25% for females. Remember, I said too low is not a good thing either. body fat percentage is a marker of health. Just being a lower scale weight is not a good marker of health. Just being skinny or a smaller number on that scale is not a marker of health. And yes, BMI gives us an idea, but it's not a really good measurement, because when we've got people who do have a lot of muscle mass, they tend to weigh more on the scale and their BMI is higher, putting them into the overweight or obese category. So there's nuance when you look at BMI. BMI is not a cut and dry deal. And a lot of people treat it that way. And unfortunately, a lot of doctors treat it that way too. So bottom line is, scale weight is not a measurement of health. Health is measured by your body fat percentage, your cardiovascular endurance, your strength, your labs. Are your labs where they need to be? Are you fueling your body well and hitting your nutritional needs? Like, are you getting enough fiber, protein, fruits and vegetables? Are you comfortable in your skin? Are you mentally comfortable with who you are and your self-worth, and it's not tied to a number on the scale? Do you have a healthy relationship with food? Mentally, do you have a good relationship socially with other people? What's your mental relationship with food? You don't eat something less nutritious and go to Screwville. These are all important markers of health, not just scale weight. And I see way too many women who are just focused on that dang scale, thinking that's the only thing that dictates whether or not they are a healthy individual. It's not. It's more than that. So when you go to the doctor and they put you on the scale, I want you to understand they're not measuring your body fat percentage. And BMI is not an accurate measurement of body fat either. BMI is known to be not very accurate, like I just said, but it is the only measurement tool doctors have. I wish doctors would just measure body fat percentage, because this information would be much more helpful to individuals. Let's reduce body fat percentage. Let's increase your muscle mass. What does your body composition look like? Because that's the thing that's going to dictate metabolically what's going on and your risk for disease later on. Majority of women over 35 are just chasing scale numbers, constantly chasing numbers on the scale, constantly dieting, constantly trying to manipulate the scale number to go down, because they see it as a measurement of health and of their self-worth. But a lot of women don't understand that they need to be focused on losing body fat, and they don't realize they've tied their confidence and self-worth to a number on the scale, because diet culture has instilled this in them so deeply. And sometimes parents have done it too. Scale numbers are not a true measurement of health. It can be a measurement of you having disordered eating patterns, though. It can be a measurement of disordered thinking about food and disordered thinking about your body. And I do believe many women fall into this category. Diets like Optavia, Weight Watchers, Isogenics, Beachbody, Keto, Atkins, Nutrisystem, Carnivore, Jenny Craig, they perpetuate this disordered thinking about food, and they create poor relationships with food for some women, because they're not focusing on a healthy, balanced relationship with food, losing body fat, and retaining muscle. The emphasis with these diets is too much on the scale and whether or not the scale is going down. The scale is the only thing in these diets used as a marker of success. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Megan, I hear what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, but I still want the scale to go down. Here's my question for you. What does this number on the scale represent to you? How will your life be different if you see that number on the scale? Is your life going to be different if you see that number on the scale? Or is how you will feel about yourself be different at that scale weight? Maybe we need to work on why you don't feel good about yourself unless you change the number on the scale. Most likely, this number correlates something for you. It means something for you. In your mind, you have a vision of what your body should look like at that number and feel like at that number. What body composition do you have in mind? Imagine, what does your body look like at that weight? If that vision you have for yourself is toned and fit, then the scale number is probably going to be much higher than you expect with the type of body composition you're imagining. Remember, a pound is a pound. So, I want to give you a couple client examples to normalize what can happen with the scale. Okay. I had a client who just began a calorie deficit. We are planning like a 12-week deficit for her. And she had an in-body scan done, and she lost 2 pounds of body fat and she gained 2 pounds of muscle. Scale weight stayed exactly the same. Why? Because she lost 2 pounds of body fat and gained 2 pounds of muscle. -2 plus 2 equals 0. 0 scale loss. This is why some of you are completely screwing yourself over in your journey, because you only look at the scale and you go, nothing's happening. The scale is staying exactly the same and I'm not losing anything and I'm doing all this work and nothing's happening. You're screwing yourself over because you're looking at it totally wrong. You don't even understand what you're looking at. Fat loss, for many of you, I suspect, who talk to me, fat loss is probably happening in the background, but you're measuring your data all wrong. You don't even understand what you're measuring. Another client of mine has completely transformed her body this past year. She lost 3 pant sizes. She went from a size 20 down to a size 14, gang. And everybody keeps asking her, how much weight have you lost? You know how much scale weight she's lost? 0. Zilch. Nada. Went from a size 20 to a size 14. How could this be possible? Her scale weight when we started was 236 pounds. She is still hanging out around 236, in the 230s. How did you drop 3 pant sizes and stay at 236? It's because she's a total newbie and she lost body fat and gained muscle at the same time. That's a benefit of being a newbie in this process. When you don't have that much muscle and you start doing things to gain muscle, that's a benefit you have. That's a good thing. I should also mention that this client is very, very tall and she's very active. So of course her scale weight's going to be higher. It may not even be realistic for her scale weight to be under 200 because of how tall she is. But this is the stuff that can happen. The interesting thing is during her first fat loss phase, I did not allow her to use a scale because I knew it was going to sabotage her. I just wanted her to do the stuff and feel how she was feeling and see the inches go down. So when we got to maintenance, that's when we introduced the scale. And she had a mental breakdown and she began just freaking out over the scale number. She completely erased all her progress mentally because of this scale number. And the fact that she had dropped 3 pant sizes, she completely dismissed it. She thought she was doing something wrong because of this stupid scale number. So we had to do a lot of coaching around her mindset around the scale, her understanding of the scale number to get her to a healthier place over this scale number. And understanding that the scale is not a measurement of success. It's not a measurement of losing body fat percentage. So she's now able to get on the scale without any issues. And she kind of chuckles at it now. She's like, well, I guess the scale is going to do what it's going to do. And I'm like, right. Bodies are weird. And sometimes the scale takes a while to catch up too. That's a thing as well. And I had a client in that exact situation who was similar to this client actually a while back. This client was in menopause and she started in the 230s and began eating enough protein and strength training. Lost a bunch of inches, was getting leaner, stronger. Her cholesterol came down. She reversed her prediabetes. Everybody at work is like, oh my gosh, look at how good you look. Guess what the scale did? Nothing. Here she dropped all these pant sizes and the scale did nothing. For almost 18 months, the scale stayed exactly the same. And then finally, it dropped to 215. That was when she did her second fat loss phase. And then a year later, it dropped to 190 in a third fat loss phase. Ladies, the scale just lags sometimes. It's very normal for it to lag like 18 months or longer for certain individuals, especially for those of you who are lacking muscle mass. When you were 20, you had a lot more muscle mass. So you could lose scale weight pretty quickly. You're not in the same scenario anymore. It's not the same deal. It's not the same playing field. And I know from doing this so many times with clients over the last 10 years that eventually the scale will catch up with what you're doing. I don't know when. I don't know how much. I know it will eventually catch up. And sometimes for certain individuals, they're just lacking so much muscle mass that they build muscle while losing fat, which keeps the scale exactly the same. But then later on, they lose more fat and retain the muscle, and the scale does eventually start going down. The scale often lags with progress, ladies, which is another reason why it's just a terrible, awful, horrible way to measure success, because now you start to question and go, oh my gosh, it's not working. I'm doing something wrong. This can't be the way. And now you start being inconsistent and you fall off the wagon and you sabotage because you're not taking measurements. You're not looking at anything else but the scale. And so many of you whom I speak to on social media, when you tell me you haven't been able to lose weight, I usually ask if you've been taking monthly measurements. I either get the response from you that no or not regularly. So you're not measuring your data properly if you're not taking measurements. You can't say you're not losing body fat if you're not doing this one very simple thing of taking monthly measurements, because you're not measuring whether or not you're losing body fat. Now, if you don't want to lose body fat and you just want to lose scale weight, you don't care about your metabolic health, you don't care about muscle, being strong, having a strong cardiovascular system, having a healthy relationship with food, having good energy and aging well, which I don't recommend, then don't listen to anything I say and never take measurements. Keep using the scale, keep sabotaging yourself, and keep doing weird things with food just so you can keep the scale weight going down, and mentally you're living in a diet prison. Keep doing that. Because using the scale all by itself is a terrible way to go about this. Like I said, you're not in the same playing field. If you're like 35 and up, you are not in the same playing field. You don't have the muscle mass that you did when you were younger. The scale is not a measurement of body fat percentage, and the scale is not a measurement of your health. Too many of you are way too emotionally invested in what the scale number says or doesn't say. And the only way you're going to succeed at this journey is by emotionally disconnecting yourself from this number, understanding it's just data, understanding how fat loss really works, and understanding you're not in the same playing field as you were when you were younger. It doesn't work the same way. So here's another story about another client. This client is such a lovely, sweet lady, and she came to our coaching call so very upset recently. She had gone to her doctor and the nurse forced her to get onto the scale. And my client told the nurse she didn't want to get on the scale and that her nutritionist and her therapist advised against it. But the nurse still forced her to do it. Now, my client is in no way morbidly obese. Her scale weight is at like 215, and she's not on medications that require her to be weighed. But her therapist and I advised against her using the scale for now for her mental health. And it's just so unfortunate that we have some medical professionals who don't understand how detrimental it can be to an individual when you put them on a scale and force them to be on it. Anyway, this client, she mentally spiraled for a week because of the scale. She was extremely emotional, crying, and unmotivated to exercise, unmotivated to move her body. She stopped tracking her food, all because of the scale. When she came to the coaching call with me, I said to her, did the nurse measure your body fat percentage? How do you know you didn't lose body fat and gain muscle? And I spoke to her in depth about the difference between losing body fat and losing scale weight. And I shared some of these other client stories with her that I just told you about. And immediately she felt better. She said, Megan, you always have a way of making me feel so much better. I didn't know any of this stuff. I was looking at all of this stuff wrong. And I think a lot of you are doing the same thing. You're looking at all of this wrong. And as I was coaching her through this, I started asking her a lot of questions. Turns out she was making all kinds of progress in her journey. She said she'd been noticing that she'd been fueling her body better with more nutrients. Like she came home one day and made a sandwich with her protein, got her fiber before going to an appointment. And she said, in the past, I just would have skipped that meal. But she said, I actually made the time to stop and fuel my body, because I knew that I would just be hangry afterwards and grab something I didn't want to grab. She's now focusing on getting more protein, getting more fiber, getting her steps. And as we were chatting, I asked her if she was seeing those successes, seeing that progress before our coaching call. And she said no, because I was feeling so bad about the scale. So I pointed that out to her, that she could no longer use the scale as her only measurement of success in this journey. Listen, a lot of you cancel out your success your progress, you cancel it out because you say things like, but the scale still hasn't gone down, but my pant size still hasn't gone down, but my measurement still hasn't gone down. As soon as you say that, you have just canceled out any progress you've made. One of the things you have to do in this journey, ladies, is you have to start pointing out to your brain very intentionally where progress is happening outside of the scale. Otherwise, you're in a losing battle and you're going to be in a diet prison forever. I guarantee it, you will. So this is a lesson for all of you listening today. The scale can no longer be the only thing you use to measure whether or not you are succeeding in this journey. Imagine if you measured your success as a parent only based on whether or not your child became a lawyer. I am only a successful parent if my child becomes a lawyer. I mean, what are you going to do one day if your child doesn't become a lawyer? Ladies, it's no different with the scale. The mindset is no different. Success and growth and change is likely happening all around you. Progress is happening all around you. And you aren't looking for it. You aren't showing your brain. And you're canceling it out because of a number on the scale, which you don't even understand what that means. It's not a representation of your body fat percentage. A scale that you don't even understand. A scale number that doesn't even measure health and doesn't measure body fat percentage and doesn't measure your relationship with food and your mental health. You are making yourself an emotional wreck over a number on the scale and for no logical reason other than you don't understand really how this works. And I've seen so many clients throughout the years who are emotional train wrecks because of this scale number. Being an emotional train wreck is only going to lead you to sabotage land and eventually giving up. Remember the client I spoke about in the last podcast episode whose doctor shamed her over her scale weight after she made so much progress? This stuff happens, guys, and it's so unfortunate. You need to be empowered because guess what? A lot of doctors don't understand how this works either. You need to be empowered. I want you to know what stuff you need to be looking for. And I don't want you to be in an emotional prison over any of this anymore because you're going to be stuck in it if you keep looking at things this way. This is part of the mindset shift you need to make. Being obsessed with a scale number is not healthy. Emotionally reacting to a scale number is not healthy. You are not healthy if you fear a number on the scale. Your thinking is not healthy. Your thinking is disordered if the number on the scale is your only measurement of progress and success. I even see clients who are scared of going into maintenance coming out of a deficit because of the scale. Is the scale going to go up? I don't want the scale to go up. How do I make sure the scale stays the same in maintenance? These are the kind of things women ask me. And I have to work a lot with these clients on their mindset in thinking about this scale number. You are never going to maintain your lowest scale number coming out of a deficit. It's just not how fat loss works, gang. There is going to be a little bit of rebound on the scale. That's totally normal for most individuals. But your inches or your measurements should stay the same. They should pretty much stay the same. Ah, yes, measurements. Most of you aren't taking them, though, and that's the problem. So, if measurements stay the same and clothes are fitting the same, who cares if the scale goes up in maintenance? Why do we care? This goes back to the question I asked earlier. What does this number on the scale represent for you? Once you can answer that question, then you will find what's at the root of that and what really needs to be worked on. The biggest thing I see with women is they don't trust themselves to maintain the results they have. That's really disordered. That's not healthy. This is part of the reason why I work on maintenance with my clients and why a few years ago I started making this part of my program. So whether or not somebody had lost all their weight, we're working on maintenance. We're taking breaks and we're working on maintenance because that's where I know people screw up. Because your mindset screws you up. And tying all your success to a number on the scale and only focusing on losing scale weight is a sure way to give up and fail in this journey. Part of this journey is learning to see and appreciate where progress is happening outside the scale. I see that as part of my job as a nutritionist to teach people how to see things differently, how to look for where progress and success is happening. Because if progress and success is happening, you're on the road. And you just need to keep practicing and chipping away at this. If you stay on the road and you do the best you can, eventually you're going to get to your destination. The problem is a lot of people get off the road. They freak out over the scale and they get off the road. Imagine driving your car somewhere, you're on the interstate, and every 10 miles you pull over for 2 days and get mad that you're not at your destination yet. So you spend 2 days sulking on the side of the road. I'm not there yet. I'm never going to get there. Every 10 miles you do this. It's going to take you forever to get to your destination. It's no different with losing body fat. If you keep pulling over on the side of the road, it's going to take forever. But if you keep going, you are guaranteed to get there, I promise you. So now you know the difference. The difference between losing body fat and losing scale weight. And now you know health is not a scale number. BMI is not a representation of your health. Body fat percentage is going to be much more beneficial when you think about health. If you want something to measure, you should ask your doctor, I want you to measure my body fat percentage. How do I get that done? Give me a script for a DEXA scan. I want to see how much muscle mass I have. I want you to be empowered. I don't want you to be a prisoner to this scale weight anymore. And if you want to be in a diet prison for the rest of your life, you want to struggle mentally with food the rest of your life, keep focusing on the scale weight. But if you want to be free of this diet prison and you want to have mentally a good relationship with food freedom, be able to go eat some French fries without going to Screwitville, having pizza once in a while with your family on a Friday night without going to Screwitville, then you got to let go of the scale. You got to understand what the scale really represents. You got to understand how much muscle mass you have, and you got to start taking measurements. You got to start empowering yourself to look at things the right way, and also showing your brain, where is progress happening? Because if progress is happening, you just got to stay on the road. So the question I have for you today is, what is your goal? Now that you understand and I have educated you on the difference between losing body fat and losing scale weight, what is your goal? Is your goal to lose body fat, or is your goal to lose scale weight and be skinny fat? Something for you to think about. Okay, ladies, I hope that this episode was very helpful to you. I'll chat with you soon. Hey, if you enjoyed this podcast, you have to come check out my free weight loss class. It's the 5 steps to lasting weight loss, how hormones impact weight loss, and the truth about lasting weight loss without relying on willpower, workouts, or deprivation. Click the link in the show notes to watch that free class today. And if you are a woman over 35 with 20 to 50 or more pounds to lose, schedule a free weight loss breakthrough session with me after you watch that class, and let's talk about your 20 to 50 or more pound weight loss plan.